start that post-drug war conversation about drugs, which is one of the reasons I included caffeine, a totally legal drug that everybody uses. One of the most powerful drug experiences I've had in my life was the first cup of coffee after 3 months off.
Really?
It was psychedelic. It
Really?
was incredible. Yeah.
Come on.
Try it. Try getting off caffeine for a
3
while.
months?
3 months without caffeine.
How am I going to do a podcast?
He said, well, you're never going to understand your relationship to caffeine until you get off it. So it was kind of a dare, and it was really hard. It was one of the hardest things I've done.
Really?
Oh, I was a mess.
For how long?
3 months.
You're a mess until you...
I was functional after a month. The first week I was not functional at all. I felt like I had contracted ADD. I could not stay on track. It was weird. I didn't feel myself for the whole time. And I thought, what does that mean? It means yourself is caffeinated. And before caffeine, it was a very different world and a very different consciousness. People were drunk a lot of the time, buzzed almost all of the time. People drank morning, noon, and night because it was safer than water. Right, water was really how you got diseases. Even kids, you gave your kids hard cider for breakfast.
Wow.
And this was true in America up until the 1800s. Caffeine comes along in the 1650s, and tea and chocolate and coffee all arrive in the same decade in England, which is kind of like great decade, right? And things start to change.
In the form of coffee?
Coffee and tea. And chocolate, which also has caffeine in it. You start moving toward night shifts and overnight shifts. You couldn't do that without caffeine. And the clearest illustration of that I came across is the coffee break. Where did that come from? The coffee break actually has a history. We know the company that came up with it. And it was a necktie manufacturer in Denver called Wigwam Weavers.
Really?
Then they hired these women to do it. And they could do it beautifully. And there were very intricate patterns, very complicated looms. I mean, you've seen how they, the patterns on neckties. And the women could do it really well, but only for about 4 or 5 hours. So they called a meeting, and the owner said to the workers, what could we do? We have to improve your efficiency, and we need more output. And the women said, well, give us a coffee break. They didn't call it that initially. And give us some time at like 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, and give us some coffee and tea. So we started doing it, and overnight, like their productivity and efficiency goes up, quality control goes up, and so he institutes the coffee break. And think about it. Your employer gives you a drug and then gives you time off in which to ingest it during the workday.
What your experience was like with the 3 months off and then having the caffeine.
So I had this 3 months that was really unpleasant. The only things that were positive about it was I slept like a teenager. It really did improve my sleep. I had some great sleeps like I remember from when I was a teenager, when you can sleep 14 hours. That was really good. I also felt, and I'm not proud of this, self-righteous. So, and I remember one morning having to get a 6 a.m. flight, get to the airport, and it's just when they're opening the Pete's and the Starbucks, and the line is like snaking, for those people getting on 6 a.m. flights. And I'm looking at these people, and they look like junkies you see in Amsterdam. They look so pathetic, and that they were hooked, and they needed their fix, and they look kind of miserable, and withdrawal was starting because that first cup of coffee is not about the pleasure it gives us. It's really about stopping withdrawal symptoms, which are beginning overnight because you haven't had it for 24 hours. And I knew that I was going to rejoin them as soon as I could.
Right.
So when I hit the 3-month mark, I decided, and I needed for the ending of the piece, to have a cup. So I had this first cup. I drank this drink, and it was so good. I mean, I just felt these waves of well-being, and then it turned into euphoria, and I was like, wow, this is such a strong drug. I had no idea. It was like cocaine or something. And that lasted for maybe 20 minutes, but then something turned that was kind of interesting. Across the street, there was a garbage truck that was grabbing hold of 2 plastic garbage cans and shaking them like this and making this horrible racket. And it really got under my skin. I was getting kind of irritable. And I felt like I got to get something done. I felt kind of compulsive.
Wow.
And so we walked home, and I went to my office, and I just had this desire to get shit done. And so what I did was, this is really weird, I unsubscribed from like 100 listservs that I was getting on my email that were really annoying. I just killed them one after another and after another. And then after I finished that, I went through the sweater in my closet, all the sweaters in my closet. And I threw out some. I gave some away.
Sounds like meth behavior. Because this is what I hear. I had a friend of mine.
I don't know.
Used to date a girl who was on meth, and she always would clean. She
Really?
would come home and organize and clean things. He's like, so if your girl starts cleaning incessantly, she might be on
You
amphetamines.
have a problem. So I said to myself, how can I hold on to this power that this drug has? Because if I start using it every day, I'm going to lose it. I'm just going to be another caffeine, addict. Came up with this idea: only do it on Saturdays, once a week. And I did that for a while. So that very day, after cleaning out my closet, I worked in the garden, and there were some plants that needed a replacement. And so I started driving down to this garden center called Flowerland. And I realized, why did I pick that flower? Why did I pick that nursery? And say, oh, they have this Airstream where they sell espresso drinks right out in front. It was the voice of the addict, putting me in position to get another cup. Right?
Did you try any other forms of caffeine?
I would do green tea, as I'm drinking now, as a kind of, green tea is a very good source of caffeine because it's really even.
What is the caffeine content of green tea, the average cup?
It's probably a third of what you get in a cup of coffee. Isn't that amazing that a plant could devise a chemical that can unlock a receptor in your brain? That's astonishing.